You ever have one of those moments where you realize that you've spent years scrolling, eating your feelings, ruminating about stuff that never actually mattered, doing literally anything to avoid doing the habits that would actually help you become the person you want to be? Yeah, that was me for probably over a decade. And maybe that's where you are right now. You know how it is. Like, you probably watch other people just do things. They wake up and meditate. They go for runs. They do meal prep for the week. They even reply to other people's messages in a normal, timely fashion. They're able to stay logged off social media. It's just like, how? How the hell are they doing that? What could they possibly have that I don't? Because that feels impossible. Despite being stuck for many years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Move my body daily, make sure that I had healthy food available all the time, meditate at least a little bit every morning so I would feel less triggered by random stuff that would happen. Reply to messages at least within the same week that they were sent. Deal with overdue tasks after a day or two instead of after a week. The basic stuff that functional adults should be able to do. But no matter how much I knew that these things would help me, I would wake up every day and just not do it. And of course, then came the shame and the guilt that I'd feel terrible that I let myself down another day, and that how the hell was I going to get out of this? The weight of another day not having gotten it done just made me feel terrible, and I would do stuff to numb and avoid the feeling, which made me want to do it even less. And maybe you think like I used to think, that I just need more discipline, more willpower, say more positive affirmations, that successful people just have something that you don't have, that you're fundamentally lazy or broken somehow, like not a properly fully functional adult, that you can't just do the things, that if you just could push yourself harder, be better, try more, then you'd finally be able to become the person you want to be. So here's what actually changed everything for me. I stopped trying to do everything right, especially comparing to the ideal, and I started just doing it at all. I stopped trying to be perfect, all or nothing, and I leaned more into creativity and being open-minded. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that it literally changed my life when I realized that I can write the rules so that I'm more likely to succeed, that I can say, I just need to show up a little bit, and that counts. And I think your entire life could shift too. It took me years, probably about 6 years of attempting to do a daily meditation practice for me to finally be able to do something every single day. It's not because I suddenly got more disciplined. It's because I got more creative about what doing meditation daily meant for me. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how I built unbreakable habits by lowering the bar as well as setting higher standards for myself at the same time, and how doing the smallest overdue actions freed my mind in ways I never expected. Because if I can do this, somebody who struggled with consistency with my ADHD and my attachment issues, then it's totally possible for you too. If you're new here, hi, I'm Leslie, and I'm making content about stuff that I'm going through on my journey to become a more secure and healthy person. If that sounds like your kind of content, then subscribe for more and let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see. Okay, so the first thing that completely changed the game for me was what I mentioned before. I stopped having these rigid rules about what counts as showing up and doing the habit. For years, I had heard that it's ideal to do 20 minutes of daily meditation seated in silence, no guidance. And I really felt that if I couldn't do that, then it didn't count and I couldn't benefit. And every time I'd try, I'd sit there for probably about 90 seconds, but what felt like an eternity. My mind would be racing. I would feel like I was doing it wrong. I would feel the pressure that I set a timer, and I would give up. And then I would feel like a failure all over again. But then I changed the rules so that meditation meant any intentional moment of presence. Some days it's sitting down with my eyes closed or staring at a candle for 3 minutes. Some days it's literally just sitting still while my coffee brews, or taking a few deep breaths and focusing on what I'm cooking. And some days it's doing a body scan while I'm still lying in bed. It's the same with movement, because I used to think counting an exercise session would mean that it had to be at least 30 minutes. And if it was shorter, it had to be really intense. I had to be really sweaty. I had to be sore. Then I changed the rules so that movement that counts is anything I do that gets me out of a frozen state. Even if I feel like I don't have a lot of time, a 5-minute walk around the block can even change my mood. Dancing while I'm cooking something in the air fryer. And sometimes it's stretching on the floor while I'm scrolling my phone or watching a movie, because I still scroll and at least I'm stretching. Here's what I realized after years of beating myself up, and what I really want you to understand. Your brain doesn't really care about the amount that you do. It cares about the pattern you're creating of showing up. Even for 2 minutes, even if you do it imperfectly and messy, even when you're convinced it doesn't feel like enough, you're still proving to yourself that you're someone that actually shows up, that keeps promises to yourself. And that's what actually builds your habit. Think about it. Are you waiting to do things perfectly now? Are you thinking that if you don't have time for a full hour gym session or a full class, that you're not going to be able to do any kind of exercise today? Or anything else that matters to you? Are you not starting because you feel like you can't do it right? You can't do it in the ideal way? Because while you're waiting for yourself to be able to show up in the perfect condition, to feel motivated to do it, for it to be this amazing positive experience, what you're actually doing is reinforcing the pattern that you're somebody who doesn't follow through. And I know you don't want to be that person, that you're sick of being that person anymore. What nobody talks about enough about building habits is that the days that matter most are the days you really don't want to show up. Those aren't the good days when you feel motivated. Let me give you a real example of what this looks like. It's honestly important for any habit to have versions of it that you can show up and there's a bare minimum of what counts, a few minutes, a few reps, and a version where you feel more motivated, where you have more energy for the days where you want to do it. It's important to be creative and adaptable with yourself. That's really how everyone is consistent, who is consistent. And don't get me wrong, I have days that are really hard too. Like I was starting to feel like I was getting sick and I really didn't want to get out of bed. And so I laid in bed and I started stretching my body, moving a little bit. I closed my eyes and I started breathing. And I felt really good that even on a day when I was sick, when I definitely couldn't work out, when I didn't want to get out of bed or move and exert a lot of energy, that I still found ways to be like, you know what? I moved my body in a good way today. And I already started my day like being more mindful. It felt so crazy to me, even though I'd had all these experiences before, because when you spend most of your life feeling like it's either all or nothing, it's surprising how just showing up a little bit every day counts. You need to train your brain that you're not ruled by how you feel. You're not ruled by external circumstances and times when you don't have time, when you don't have energy, or when you're literally sick and you can't get out of bed. You're training yourself that even on your worst days, you still show up. And that makes it that much more likely that you'll continue to show up. Those bare minimum days are everything, because that's when you're breaking the pattern of giving up, of making excuses, of falling off track. The days that I'm most proud of are the days where I really didn't want to and where I could have had a valid excuse to not show up, but I did anyway. Like, I just found a way to make it work. I found a way to do any little thing, and to consider that counting is huge growth for me. This whole concept, it applies to everything, especially to the things that feel the hardest to start. The other thing that massively freed my mind, it was dealing with small overdue tasks that I'd been avoiding for weeks or months. Stuff like scheduling doctor appointments, replying to messages, cleaning, small things that felt harder the longer I avoided them. You really don't realize how much mental space these tiny things are taking up until you actually start to do them little by little. That you start to realize like, oh, now I have more time and energy to focus on other things. Because even if you're not consciously thinking about it, there's so much stuff that is on our minds in our subconscious, all the stuff that we're avoiding. Like, even though we feel like we're pushing it away, it still lives there in our body. It might be out of our conscious mind, but it's still contributing to us feeling anxious and also feeling some tension in our body, some stress. For a doctor appointment, I would think about having to make that call, especially calls are like dreaded for me. And it would make me more anxious and more anxious. And I would say, okay, like I'll do it after lunch. Okay, like I'll do it in the afternoon. sometimes I would be like, okay, like I'm going to meditate and do it. And sometimes that would help to like calm me down. But a lot of the time I would just not do it. And I felt it, that it wasn't good for me, that it was not healthy for me to be putting this off. But the more I didn't do it, the harder it felt to just do it. Avoiding these tasks just creates this constant background hum of you're avoiding something in the back of your mind. When you just deal with a thing, then that mental space, like it opens up. You're liberated. You could actually be present. You could actually focus on what was actually important right now instead of getting stuck thinking about the stuff that you've been putting off that you didn't do yesterday, and then the stuff that you're worrying about tomorrow or next year. I found that this was so true most often for stuff that took like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to actually do, especially for cleaning tasks. Like it shocked me where I was like, oh, I was putting that off for so long and it literally took 15 minutes and I did it while I was like listening or watching to something. The avoidance was so much heavier and disproportionate for how intimidating the task actually was. Here's one thing you can try that worked for me. Every day, just pick one overdue thing. Not 5, not 10, not everything on your list. You know, there's at least one thing that you know doing would free you up so much. And you just got to do it, even if it's not perfect. Here's what people like me never understood about habits and productivity. And I need you to really hear this. It's actually not about doing more. It's about freeing up your mind so that you can actually live your life. Every small overdue action that you take is you releasing mental clutter, is you lightening the load, the burdens that you carry every day. And when your mind is clearer, when you start to unload a few of these small things, then other things in your life become easier. It might be hard to believe, but you got to trust me on this. I find where most people mess this up, where I messed this up for so long and where you might be, is that the focus becomes on these rigid rules, on doing this every single day instead of focusing on how can I be creative. The secret to success with new habits is that you have to design them custom around your actual brain and your actual life, not some ideal version of yourself or some version of another person that you're comparing yourself to. You can only stick to what works for you and your lifestyle. Like with food, maybe this is a struggle for you too, because honestly, it's been one for me most of my life, my relationship to food and regulating my emotions through emotional eating, doing strict meal plans or eating windows. I would either struggle to do it at all for like months on end, or randomly I would do good for like 3 or 4 days in a row. And I would think, okay, now everything changed. But soon after, something else stressful would happen in my life and it would totally throw me off. And then I'd kind of spiral and just like give up completely. And then what actually helped was I started applying this idea of being creative to this problem that I'd been having. I started thinking, okay, let me accept that there's going to be a lot of days where I'm going to wind up going to the kitchen like half asleep and reaching for something. Maybe if I like portioned out some kind of like healthy snack, like some vegetables or like some yogurt, that I would reach for that instead of like reaching for the whole tub of yogurt. You know, like maybe this could work, which required me to accept that I was going to be imperfect and still eat at night sometimes, and that maybe there's something I could do to make the impact less bad. And that's actually really been working for me. Just because we don't see an immediate solution doesn't mean that we can't change how we look at it. We can't change what our standards are. Being more kind and less all or nothing. The same thing happens with me with messages that sometimes I really struggle to get back to people. And I have to forgive myself. But what works for me sometimes is sending a voice note or just like catching up quickly and saying sorry, you know, like I'm getting back to them within a week. And that's better than in the past where I might have realized that it took me a week and then it stressed me out and I just delayed it for even more time. You just need to be gracious with yourself and not get caught up in what you feel like you're missing. Like, yes, maybe the perfect version of this habit that you see somebody else doing on social media, like would be more productive and more impactful. But perfect isn't your goal. Sustainable is your goal. And also, you often see people's highlight reels. They share what they do on their best days. I find people don't usually talk about how some days they struggle and don't do anything at all or do barely anything. Sustainable, to me, like how I get excited about it, is that it just means being creative. I take it as like a fun challenge that I can do with myself to get creative and experiment. Because experimenting is essential if you want to change who you are, your identity, and build new habits, build a new life. You have to give yourself permission to try things, and if they don't work, try something else. Give yourself permission to do things in your own way. This is deeper than just about habits. It's about how you relate to your entire life. Here's what I didn't expect when I started doing all this. I stopped ruminating so much. I stopped living in this anxious future of what if I never change, or this like regretful past of like, I'm so far behind. Because when you're taking small actions every day, what you're actually doing is spending more time in the present, just focusing on what you can do, what's in your control to do right now. You're giving your brain proof that you're someone who right here, right now, shows up and follows through, no matter what gets in the way. For me, somebody who struggled a lot with anxiety, perfectionism, being dysregulated and overwhelmed, when you're actually in the present, not tripping in the past or the future, everything is kind of doable. But what if you just focus on one small thing you can do right now? What works for me especially is breaking things down into small steps so that even a task that might require a lot, like for me to say I'm going to clean a whole room is like absurd. I've learned right in my life that it's like I have to break it down into like first just like dealing with my bed, making my bed and all the steps that that takes. And that if that's all I have to do in the morning when I wake up to feel like I'm cleaning my room in some way, then that's enough. The hard part is the mental weight of all the things you're not doing. So it's really the best thing you can do for yourself this year, for the rest of your life, to do the things you don't want to do, to find ways and be creative, to do the things you know you need to do, to become the version of yourself you know that you can be. Focusing on that one task or just that one step brings you back to the present. It takes you away from looking at your past or looking ahead to the future and worrying. It reminds you and shows you that you're capable right now, that you don't need to wait until someday when you finally get it together or there are the perfect circumstances. So if you're stuck scrolling right now, that you're avoiding something, if you feel like you really keep failing at becoming who you feel you want and need to be, I see you. I so deeply get it. I know how frustrating and also how hard it is. That was me the majority of my life. That was like my normal. That was how I thought life worked. That you either showed up all the way or not at all. Some days I still slip back into that mindset. I really mean it when I say that all you need to do is find a way to start and do something that counts. To do anything that counts, redefine your rules. Do the bare minimum, especially on the days you don't want to. Start by picking one small thing every day and trying to get that done. Because when you start living more in the present, when you stop waiting for the perfect version of yourself to show up, everything becomes doable. The task that's been haunting you for weeks, it probably doesn't take more than 10 minutes. The habit you're convinced that you can't build because you feel like you've been trying for years now. You can, if you change what it looks like for you. You're not lazy. You're not fundamentally broken in some way. There's nothing structurally different from you than the other people who seem to be having it all together. You just need to get creative and to be more gracious with yourself and start proving to your brain that you're someone who shows up, even when it's messy, even when it doesn't feel like it's enough, even when it's literally the bare minimum and the bar is on the floor. The person you want to be, they're already here. They're already inside you. That future version of yourself that you can be just needs you to show up and do one step forward today, every day, or at least most days. That's honestly it. That's the whole thing. That's the real secret of how people transform themselves and take on new identities. So what's it going to be? What's the one small thing you're going to do after watching this?